Welcome to the 19th lecture of this course. Ladies and gentlemen, today we shall be discussing the research design in case of exploratory research studies. Uh, the as we discussed earlier that the research design is not something which can be same for all kind of the researches. So broadly we shall be discussing the research design in case of exploratory or formulative studies, and also in this lecture, whereas exploratory research design in case of the descriptive and diagnostic research would be the subject of discussion in the next lecture, and the design for the hypothesis testing would be then onwards, some onward lecture. So when we come to study the research design, we find that the exploratory research studies are also formative or formulative research studies. The main purpose of such studies is that of formulating a problem for more precise investigation or of developing the working hypothesis from an operational point of view. So, all as we have discussed in the previous lectures, that the exploratory research is an exposed research, kind of type of exposed research, where some phenomenon has already taken place, something has happened, and the research is to look into what has happened. So, like, and I gave the example also, the example of all the FIRs in the country, all the inquiry commissions in the country, they are perfect example of the exploratory researches. So, the the problem has to be formulated for the investigation and also for developing a working hypothesis. So, in such cases, the research design has to be flexible, that is the appropriate, because it provides opportunity for considering different aspects of a problem under study. If the research design is not flexible, then the problem could not be studied perfectly, and the it could be there could be many hurdles where the research will not be properly proceeding, because this research is something about totally where something has happened, some phenomenon has taken place, and there is no information and not much information about that, and the investigation has to take place. So, if suppose some phenomenon has taken place or some riot has taken place or if some murder has taken place. So this phenomenon has to be investigated a very in a very fresh manner. And if we keep the overall design flexible, then we can take the researcher can take the decision at hand what is required. And wherever if the design is not flexible, then what would happen? We would have problem in collecting the data. The researcher would have problem in every step of the investigation of research. And this is why the design for the exploratory research studies are kept flexible so that it can be adopted or according to the change in situations, whatever the where whichever the situation is there, the researcher would would take the appropriate action. That is the flexibility. Because if we decide everything as rigid, then the researcher does not have option, and in such problem of exploratory research, the design, this is why in such cases of exploratory research studies, the design has to be flexible. When we proceed in this lecture, we will have further the throw further light on this. Generally there are three methods in the context of research design for such studies. Three methods or three stages or three phases, we can say. What are those? These are the number one, survey of the concerning literature. Then second, the experience survey. And third, the analysis of insight stimulating examples. These are basically three stages of or three steps of the design of the exploratory studies. We will be discussing one by one these points. First, the survey of the concerning literature. This happens to be the best method for formulating the research problem or developing a hypothesis. But since our design is flexible, so hypothesis can be reviewed at any stage and their usefulness can be evaluated as a basis for further research. This is why the researcher should review and build up the work already done by others. But in cases where the hypotheses are yet to be formulated, the task is to review the available material for deriving the relevant hypothesis from it. Besides the bibliographic survey of studies already available in the area of interest, the researcher has to formulate the problem. She has also to apply concepts and theories developed in different contexts to the area to the problem which he is working or she is working. And at times The works of creative writers also provide a fertile ground for hypothesis formulation and as such may be looked into by the researcher. So, the survey of the literature remains a very pivotal stage for the research design in case of exploratory research studies. There may be certain happenings, phenomena like this happening into some other regions. There may be quarrel, there may be murders, or there may be the effect of say floods in some other areas. There may be the effects of avalanches in some other areas. So, if we are studying the problem of say concerned with the exploratory research studies, the survey of the literature on and around our topic of discussion would be very helpful, or topic of research would be very helpful in giving the direction to our research. Because when we do research, when we do investigation, we cannot do it in a vacuum. We need some guidance, we need some direction, we need some kind of the instances from where things can be taken. So, if some phenomenon has taken place at one place, maybe the same phenomenon has taken earlier at some other places. So, what the researcher has to do? Researcher has to go through those literature which were done or which have been worked by the other researchers on and around or about such type of topics by the other researchers. So, this gives us lot of ideas and lot of help in our own research. This is why the survey of literature one would find that is rather necessary in all kind of the research studies. And so, it is important in the exploratory research studies also. We go through the literature, we get so many insights. We know how the other person or the other researcher had proceeded, how since the design is flexible, how did he proceed, what was the framework under which the other researchers have collected the data, because data collection is very important, and many of the instances the collection of data is not so easy, because there are the respondents, they may try to hide many things, or on a natural basis we may not be able to dig the data. So, in this way the work of the other people, that is when we have gone through, that is survey of the literature, gives us lot of direction how the other people they began defining their problem, how they collected the data, and if they began from one form of collection of data, was there any change in that say design of collection of the data, because the design is kept flexible, because is the one type of collection of data may not be successful, and we may have to go to some other kind of collection of the data, so that we will be getting an idea from the survey of the literature. Otherwise we will have problems. Again, the how they have recorded the data, that is also important to know, because there are also various kind of recording methods which was appropriate for the other works that has taken place, because even in recording one may not have any kind of fixed recording method, one may have to change it in between, and that is what is flexible. So we will come to know about the change in collection of data methods from the previous lecture, from the previous, sorry, from the survey of the concerning literature, which the previous researchers have done and accomplished. So that is going to benefit us. Again, how did they processed it? How did they analyzed it and arrived at the conclusion, or arrived or developed a hypothesis, would also be of very interest. So if we, the researchers, want that, we are not groping in the dark, we have clear cut ideas, we have clear cut direction in our minds, then the survey of the literature concerned with the with the problem that the researcher is going to work upon is very important, crucial, and helpful in in proceeding the research. So the researcher must be must be adhering to the survey of the concerning literature, and should do it as far as the materials are available. The next important step in the research design in case of exploratory research studies is the experience survey. What does it mean? It means the survey of people who have had practical experience with the problem to be studied. The object of such a survey is to obtain insight into the relationships between variables and new ideas relating to the research problem. That is the objective. So for such a survey, people who are competent and can contribute new ideas may be carefully selected as respondents to ensure a representation of different types of experience. Suppose we are working on Indian migrants in GCC countries. So we have to search for the Indian migrants, workers, and in fact talk to them, collect information from them, collect data from them, because they have been over there, and they have experienced it from their job over there. We, in the newspapers, we come to know about the ill treatment of maid servants, household workers, those who migrate from India or any other South Asian countries to those countries. So it is better that we should not listen it or note it down from others, but it is desirable that we experience, we talk to the experienced people who or maid servants who were over there, and get or collect data from them. If suppose there is a railway accident, so we must talk to those who were at the time of accident in the train, and they have survived. So they would give the real information what did happen. Or if suppose there is some stampede in a crowd and the investigation has to be done, it also comes in the exploratory research studies. So the researcher must talk to those who have experienced this phenomenon, who were present over there and suffered some injury or not, but they were part of that phenomenon and saw from their own eyes what had happened. So the experience survey means to survey the people, to interview the people, to collect the data from the people who had practical experience with the problem to be studied. The problem we are studying, they had the practical problem. They were participant. They were real observant in the phenomenon, and that would give us a very clear picture of the phenomenon. That is called the experience survey, to collect data from those who have practical experience with the problem or phenomena that the researcher is studying. And without that, it cannot be such thing. It cannot be a good research. Suppose we are working on the drug addiction. We have to catch hold of some people who are or were either in this phenomenon, involved in this phenomenon of drug addiction, because there are many who, from the effort of society, government and individuals, have left this bad habit and joined the healthy life. Whereas there may be thousands who are still in that habit, and they are suffering from that phenomena. So if we are working on that, we must take care to interview or to seek data from those who have been part and parcel, or who were or who are part and parcel of this phenomena. If we are working on the prison, status of prison, or any aspect related to prison, then also we have to interview or collect data from those who have been in prison. That is the experience survey, because they have seen the prison from inside, how things take place over there, how the life is over there. One may not imagine from outside. So, the experience survey is a very important and crucial part of the of the of this kind of design which we are going to develop for the exploratory research. Of course, the experience collecting interview is likely to be long and may last for even hours. But then this may enable the researcher to define the problem more concisely and help in the formulation of the research hypothesis. This survey may as well provide information about the practical possibilities for doing different types of research. Then, the third aspect of this research design in case of the exploratory research studies, this is the analysis of insight stimulating examples. It is also a fruitful method for suggesting hypotheses for research. It is particularly suitable in areas where there is little experience to serve as a guide. The method consists of intensive study of selected instances of the phenomenon in which one is interested. For such a survey, people who are competent and can contribute new ideas may be carefully selected as respondents to ensure a representation of different types of experience. So, if we are working on prison, we should not concentrate on one prison, but rather we can take case studies or intensive studies for for the inmates of the prison in different jails or different prisons. And if suppose we are working on the drug addiction, there also we should not limit ourselves to taking data or interview from one place, but we can move from one place to other and randomly, not randomly, but rather by judiciously, by the researcher's own decision, may select some people or all the people for this kind of insight, collecting the data about insight stimulating examples. There would be many who have left the habit of the drug addiction, and the researcher takes his or her own decision to contact these persons, and on his own judgment or her own judgment, he or she collects the data from such kind of people and knows about the problem in depth. Also, if, say, we are working on the Indian maids or household workers who are working in the Gulf countries, some of them may have good experience, some of them may have bad experience. So, the we will try to contact, of course, it cannot be random or something. It becomes upon it depends upon the the judgment of the researcher, whom to search and whom to contact and whom to interview. Then from this he could have a balanced kind of data from the people. So, the exploratory study is taken for the following reasons: feasibility, to find out whether the study on the issue in question is warranted, worthwhile, and feasible; familiarization, to familiarize the researcher with the social context of the issue, that is, details about relationships, values, standards, and factors related to the topic; new ideas, to generate ideas, views, and opinions on the research issue, which will help in proper understanding of the problem; further, to show whether the variables can be related to each other, and also to operationalize the concepts by explaining their structure and by identifying indicators. So, looking at these reasons for conducting the research, it is clear. If it is not flexible, then the with the nature of the study, the progress in research can have many hurdles. So, looking at the purposes or the reasons of the exploratory study, it becomes clear that design has to be flexible. If it is rigid, then it will have problems and it cannot be, the research can have many hurdles in its implementation. The whole discussion about this research design in case of exploratory studies, research studies, is summarized below in the table, and it gives the summary of the kind of research design which has to be adopted in case of the exploratory research studies. From the table we find that the overall design has to be flexible, and the flexible design gives the opportunity for considering different aspects of the problem at different stages. Then comes the sampling design. The sampling design has to be non-probability sampling design, purposive or judgment sampling, which means that it is the decision of the researcher. It is the judgment of the researcher whom to include in his sample and whom not to include in the sample. From where to collect the data and from whom to collect the data, which or how many, or say who should be the objects of study, who should be constitute his sample for collection of the data. That depends upon the judgment of the researcher, because there is no option, and this is why it is flexible. If the researcher goes for a design which is not flexible, rigid, then even collecting the data would become problem, as it would be very difficult to collect the data from the concerned people. So the sampling design has to be non-probability sampling design. Then the statistical design. The statistical design should not be pre-planned for analysis. It should be left for the researcher to decide at the time of analysis itself, because it depends upon the decision and intellect of the researcher to include those who have experience in the region, who have experience in the phenomenon, and who have been part of the phenomenon, and also he has to choose the stimulating examples. The insight stimulating examples, the researcher has to decide and collect. Otherwise, if it is the pre-planned method, then it would be difficult. Similarly, the observational design, unstructured instruments for the collection of data. Again, because if it is structured, then it would limit the options of the researcher in collection of the data. And in such kind of studies, the options should not be limited, it should be open. If we limit the option, then again there would be problem in the collection of data. So this is why the observational design is unstructured and the instruments are unstructured for the collection of the data. And finally, the operational design. Again, in this type of research design, for the type of research studies that is exploratory or formulative that we are discussing, again here there does not have to be fixed decisions about the operational procedure. What is operational design? It is about the implementation of the other designs, other kind of designs, but then the operational design here in such type of research studies, they cannot be fixed, because the research problem is such that if we fix it, we cannot implement it. So this is why it is said that the overall design of the exploratory research studies must be flexible. It should not be rigid, because if it is not flexible and rigid, then the research cannot proceed in a smooth way, because of the nature of problem that we are we have undertaken, that the researcher has undertaken in this exploratory kind of research studies. I am hopeful that I have been able to make it clear to you regarding the research design in case of exploratory research studies. Thank you very much.